Before we begin, this is an audio-only war briefing, so if you want the full experience, close your eyes. Listen closely, because what you're about to hear is the most shocking turn in the Ukraine-Russia war this month. A strike so precise, so devastating, that Moscow still refuses to comment. Let's begin. Sometimes wars don't change in months. Sometimes they don't even change in weeks. But then, in a single night, everything shifts, and that's exactly what happened when Ukraine unleashed its FP-2 drone, a machine so disruptive, so brutally effective that it erased one of Russia's most elite drone units in one blinding flash of fire. What you're about to hear tonight is not just another battlefield update. It's a turning point, a strike that tore through Russia's command structure, shattered its sense of security, and sent a shockwave so deep into the Kremlin that even Moscow's hawks were left speechless. Because when Ukraine destroyed Russia's Rubicon drone unit, it didn't just hit a building, it severed a nerve. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you will understand why military analysts now say this. The FP-2 is not a drone. It is the beginning of a new phase of warfare. Let's step right into the fire. For months, Russia's Rubicon unit operated like a ghost in the shadows. A drone formation so well-funded, so technologically refined, that it became one of the Kremlin's most prized assets. Rubicon wasn't just a drone unit. It was Russia's drone brain, an elite intelligence formation that controlled reconnaissance missions, coordinated kamikaze drone strikes, managed electronic warfare, and trained new operators for Russia's rapidly expanding drone army. These were not raw recruits. These were specialists, signal analysts, drone engineers, tactical officers, operators capable of coordinating dozens of drones at once. The kind of personnel that take years to train and seconds to lose. Rubicon was housed inside a partially destroyed building in occupied Avdiivka, a concealed fortress hidden behind debris, shielding antennas under camouflage nets, protected by Russia's layered air defenses surrounding the city. Russian officers walked through that building believing they were safe. They believed they were out of reach. They believed Ukraine couldn't touch them. What they didn't know was that Ukraine had been watching them for weeks, from the shadows, from rooftops, through intercepted chatter, with intelligence sources hidden inside occupied territories. And then, quietly, methodically, Ukraine prepared its answer. The FP-2, a drone with the wingspan of a small aircraft, a payload powerful enough to wipe out concrete structures, and a range allowing it to reach targets Russia thought were untouchable. A drone that wasn't supposed to exist, at least not yet, and certainly not in Ukraine's possession in numbers. But on November 2nd, the war changed. Ukraine launched the FP-2, and the Kremlin never saw it coming. Let's slow down for a moment and understand what made this possible. Ukraine's intelligence service, HUR, one of the most effective intelligence organizations currently active in any conflict worldwide, discovered the exact location of Rubicon's headquarters. They confirmed which officers were present. They monitored when drone operators entered the building, and they waited until Rubicon's command post was fully staffed, until the maximum blow could be delivered. When the data was perfect, the strike was green-lit. Somewhere inside Ukraine, inside a camouflaged mobile truck disguised as a standard military vehicle, operators powered up an FP-2 armed with more than 100 kilograms of explosives. Not 5 kilograms, not 10. Not the tiny warheads carried by FPV drones, but a payload so large it mirrored the destructive force of a small cruise missile. And with a low rising hum, the FP-2 ascended into the night sky. It cut through wind, low enough to avoid Russian radars, high enough to travel fast, the engine almost whispering as the drone headed straight into occupied territory. No radio chatter, no electronic noise, no warning, just an object of pure destruction moving silently toward its target. Meanwhile, inside the Rubicon building, Russian drone operators sat in front of screens. Some were analyzing troop movements. Others were coordinating their next FPV squads. A few were planning drone strikes on Ukrainian logistics routes. They had no idea their final minutes were counting down. Then it happened. In a flash of light so bright it tore through the ruins of Avdiivka, the FP-2 smashed into the command post. The explosion wasn't just powerful, it was annihilating. It collapsed the structure. It obliterated Russia's drone officers. It vaporized equipment, consoles, antennas, storage cases, everything inside. Windows shattered blocks away. Russian soldiers nearby were thrown off their feet. And in the span of 1 second, Russia lost one of its most advanced drone units. There was no evacuation, no alarm, no escape, just a crater where Rubicon once existed. Ukraine's strike was not an accident. It was precision. It was intelligence. It was retribution. What makes this moment so devastating for Russia is not just the loss of personnel, it's the loss of expertise. Rubicon wasn't simply operating drones, it was training, coordinating, and engineering Russia's drone evolution. Losing that brain trust is a wound Russia cannot heal quickly. But this story goes even deeper and darker because while Russia was still trying to understand how the strike happened, Ukraine struck again, this time in Luhansk. 2 logistical facilities used by Russian troops, a fuel unloading station and a supply warehouse, went up in flames after FP-2 strikes. These weren't random depots. They were lifelines feeding the Russian center grouping of forces, troops who rely on those supplies to launch offensives. Now imagine the chaos, fuel lines cut, ammunition stocks burning, supply chains severed, frontline troops stranded without support. One Russian soldier posted anonymously, "Everything exploded. We didn't even have time to understand what hit us," he knew. But he didn't want to say it. It was another FP-2. Let's talk about what makes this drone feared. The FP-2 is a nightmare for Russia because it hits the exact range Russia assumed was safe. Until now, long-range Ukrainian drones could hit Russian territory. Short-range FPV drones shredded frontline troops. But mid-range targets, command posts, warehouses, troop concentrations, often survived. Russia placed its most valuable infrastructure 100 to 200 kilometers behind the lines, and Ukraine couldn't reach them. Until now. The FP-2 punches directly into that mid-range zone, a region Russia believed was its safe haven. Not anymore, and it gets worse for Moscow. The FP-2 costs just $55,000, that's roughly the price of a used pickup truck. But it can destroy millions of dollars worth of Russian hardware in one strike. This isn't just warfare, this is economic supremacy applied to the battlefield. Ukraine is spending thousands, Russia is losing millions. Ukraine is building cheap drones, Russia is losing priceless resources. Ukraine is adapting faster, Russia is reacting slower. This is how wars turn. Right now, Russian analysts are panicking for one simple reason. They cannot replicate Ukraine's cost-effective drone model. Why? Because Ukraine has built a drone ecosystem, layers upon layers of drone capability. FPV drones at the front, FP-2 drones for mid-range strikes, long-range drones for deep Russia, drone swarms in development, AI-assisted reconnaissance, night vision strike platforms, mobile truck-based launch systems, gamified incentives for drone operators, continuous innovation funded by allies, and a massive network of volunteer engineers. Russia, by comparison, is slower, heavier, more rigid, more expensive. The FP-2 isn't just a weapon, it's proof that Ukraine is out-innovating Russia at every level, and that innovation terrifies Moscow. One Kremlin insider anonymously told a Russian outlet, "We cannot win an innovation race against Ukraine. They adapt faster than we can react. That is as close as you will ever get to a confession of fear." But let's return to Rubicon for a moment, because its destruction is symbolic. Rubicon was supposed to be Russia's answer to Ukraine's drone revolution, sophisticated, well-funded, elite. And yet, it died in one hit. That message did not go unnoticed. Russian military bloggers, many of whom are aggressively nationalistic, were furious. Some blamed the officers for being careless, others blamed Russian air defenses. A few blamed intelligence failures, but the most honest voices said something else entirely. Ukraine has drones with the power of missiles. And they're right. The FP-2 is part of a greater transformation. War is no longer dominated by tanks, not by fighter jets, not by artillery alone. It is dominated by cheap, scalable, precise drones that small teams can launch from trucks. This is the future, and Ukraine is living in that future. Russia is still trying to understand it. Now, here's the part everyone is afraid to say out loud. The strike on Rubicon was not an isolated attack. It was a demonstration, a warning, a proof of capability. Ukraine has more FP-2 drones, more mobile launchers, more trained operators, and more intelligence targets mapped across occupied territory. Rubicon was only the beginning. That's why pro-Kremlin analysts are panicking. They know what could come next. Russian headquarters, artillery storage sites, command bunkers, rail nodes, forward staging points, Patriot-style radar systems, entire logistics networks. All of them are now within FP-2 range, and Russia can do nothing to stop it. To make matters worse, Russia is bleeding money, fast. Economic strain is crippling the Kremlin. The war spending is enormous, and despite Putin claiming everything is under control, his own economic development minister admitted publicly, Russia is on the brink of recession. That was months ago. Today, the situation is even worse. So, when Ukraine uses a $55,000 drone to destroy facilities worth hundreds of millions, that's not just damage. That's strategy. Because Russia can't afford to keep replacing what Ukraine keeps destroying, the FP-2 is not just a weapon, it's a financial sledgehammer. And now the biggest twist? Ukraine is only getting started. Lithuania is delivering drone swarm technology. European firms are building AI-assisted strike drones. Ukrainian engineers are creating hybrid drones that combine rocket engines with electric propulsion. And Western intelligence agencies are quietly supporting Ukraine's targeting and navigation networks. Russia's fear isn't just the FP-2. Russia's fear is what comes after the FP-2. If Ukraine is fielding this level of technology today, what will it be using next month, next year, in 2026? And what happens when drone swarms begin overwhelming Russian defenses on multiple fronts at the same time? That's why the Kremlin is stunned. They finally realized Ukraine is no longer catching up to Russia's military technology. Ukraine is surpassing it. The destruction of Rubicon was not just a military loss, it was a strategic blow, a psychological shock, a financial strike, and a message. Ukraine's drone warfare has evolved beyond Russia's ability to counter it, and the FP-2 sits at the center of that evolution. Tonight, as you listen to this, commanders in Russia-controlled territory are asking themselves, will our headquarters be next? Are we within FP-2 range? Has Ukraine already marked our coordinates? Do we have time to evacuate? Because the truth is simple. The FP-2 hit deeper than Russia thought possible. And what it destroyed, Russia cannot easily rebuild. If you've reached this point in the video, here's what I want to ask you. Is the FP-2 a potential war changer? Or will Russia adapt? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement genuinely helps us reach more people. And if you want the next episode, where we break down the Lithuanian swarm drone heading to Ukraine, a drone capable of coordinated AI attacks, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. The war's entering a new era, an era where drones rewrite battlefield logic, where the weak hit the strong with precision, where innovation outpaces brute force, where the FP-2 is not the end, but the beginning. And Russia is stunned.